RFK Jr. has officially been confirmed as our nation's top health official, despite his NutriBullet-preferred blending of small rodents, his brainworm bestie, the rampant abuse of heroin, and, the small fact that he is directly responsible for deaths through his anti-vax misinformation. I am Maggie Gehlsen-Burnett.
I am Mallory Hagan, and this is Pretty Furious.
This episode is brought to you by Basic. Located in the heart of downtown Birmingham, Alabama, Basic is a 100% women-owned and run slow fashion and ethical lifestyle store. All apparel, art, and decor at Basic is responsibly made by individuals paid living wages within dignified working spaces. In addition, they donate a portion of every sale to human rights efforts. You can visit Basic in person in downtown Birmingham, Alabama, or shop at www.abasicshop.com. Use code PrettyFurious for 15% off your first purchase.
Mallory. Maggie, we're doing a podcast.
We are doing a podcast. How did we get here? What are we doing? All of the things. We'll just dive right into the very obvious. So we are both former/recovering pageant gals who I had a previous podcast, and I just wanted to talk with somebody who understood where I was coming from in terms of the abysmal state of American politics. And Mallory is that person.
Yeah, I'm really excited that this has worked out. So being, recovering pageant gals, if you will, I believe we bonded over both beauty products and, as you said, the abysmal state of politics. And as we were brainstorming what to call this, I think you came up with the title Pretty Furious. And that's how we feel about most things. And Maggie, have we ever met in person?
I don't actually think we have, no.
But I feel like we've been friends for a really long time.
I do too. I feel like, I think the first time I ever texted you or communicated with you, it was when I was preparing for Miss Iowa in 2018. And I think Mariah had given me your number, and I was looking for some help with coaching and all the things. And yeah, I mean, I have, admired you and looked up to you for many years. And, it's very, I think, humbling to now be in sort of the same circle as somebody who you admire for, for many years, and somebody you look up to. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to continue talking about women's anger, which I think is another cornerstone of this project together, is how can we utilize this anger that is being felt through all different circles across this country, across the world, really, through women, and how we can utilize that anger in a productive way. So I'm excited to continue the conversation, and wowzers, hopefully there will be some moments of relief along the way, and ways that people can really take this podcast and use it tangibly in their everyday life.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what you do in your day-to-day? What brings you to caring about everything that's happening in our world?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's a loaded question and a podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I wouldn't say that my entire life I identified as overtly feminist or anything like that. And, I did pageants for a majority of my formative years, from the ages of 11 to when I was 23. So I have always been under the assumption that women should have the same rights, the same everything as their male counterparts. That was just the way I was raised. My parents are lovely, very liberal people. And my mom is a feminist. And, but I never truly saw, I guess, this is a very I understand the privilege in this statement, but I never really understood just how impacted women were by the political landscape until probably, I'd say 5 years ago, was really during COVID. I really started to have kind of this major awakening and this major desire and I think that desire, namely fueled by anger, desire to change the way I thought about my place in the world as a woman.
Yeah.
And that is where, the initial kind of concept for and world peace and my initial podcast, and sort of this concept of like undoing, right? This concept of how do we unlearn all of the things that we are taught as women throughout our lives, even if we are the product of people who are liberal feminists, even
Mm.
if we are people who identified as liberal for most if not all of our lives, even if we are people who believe in equal rights for women, there's always some kind of undoing and some kind of internalized misogyny and internalized patriarchal issues we have.
Yeah.
So that for me became kind of the thing where every day I just kept thinking about how the bigger systems at play were impacting women, and not just me as a white woman living in America. I have more freedoms than most, but impacting everybody, and how that collective impact really, hurts us all. And so that is sort of my day to day is spent thinking a lot about how pissed off I am that is like where we're at. But that was that, 5 years ago, I think was the really big start of kind of an undoing that is probably in its deepest unraveling as it stands right now. So what about you?
Well, unlike you, I think rather than knowing and believing that I was the daughter of a feminist or that my parents were really political, there were a lot of things in my life as a young woman in small town Alabama that were modeled to me that really embodied the feminist ideals, and that my mom was a double business owner. So I saw her win on a lot of different levels, being a teen mom, a business owner, a parent. So I think there were a lot of things that were demonstrated to me and that I really absorbed as a child that I didn't know were quote unquote feminist. Right. But I really started to understand the world that we live in and the impact that I could have, or the impact that we can all have through the Miss America program. And we've talked about this, but for those who don't know, women who compete in the Miss America program do have to have a community service initiative that they champion throughout their year. And like you, I started competing when I was like 12. And then I won Miss America at 24. So in my formative years, I was really focused on community service, and the passion areas changed throughout the years, but the knowledge that I, as a single person, could have an impact was there. And it was when I became Miss America and started lobbying on the federal level for child abuse prevention that I really understood what it meant to collaborate and what it meant to build coalitions and how to use political power and how to use influence. And so I'm really grateful to the experience of being Miss America for the influence that it gave me. But being a political figure and speaking your mind on politics is not something that typically coincides with being a quote good Miss America or being an accepted Miss America. And so there's a lot of undoing that I've done on what that role means for me. And for me, it means that there are young women, young eyeballs that are always going to be looking up to me. And I would really hate to have such a platform and such influence and not use it to encourage them to take their passion or their anger and turn it into being a productive member of their society. So Miss America was really the impetus of my understanding community service and political power. And then since then, you know this, but other folks may not, I have run for office twice, and I currently work in the political landscape for a PAC. So my days are filled with me consuming the news. And when we started talking about this podcast, I was like, I'm just so fucking furious about I'm furious about literally everything. and honestly, for those of us who really are paying attention at every turn, it's hard not to be. It's hard not to look at the world that we're living in and go, what is going on? And how did we know how we got here, but how did we get here? And so I think today's episode is just going to be such a wonderful introduction into one of the many topics that we find ourselves texting about or sending messages on Instagram about that we're just
totally
curious. Speaking of Instagram, where can people find us online? We want them to stick around, yeah?
Yes. So our Instagram handle is @PrettyFuriousPod. You can find us at prettyfuriouspod.com, Pretty Furious Pod on Substack, at Pretty Furious Pod on TikTok. Basically, yeah, Pretty Furious Pod on literally everything. And you will be able to find all of that housed within our lovely websites. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to get into the episode here in just a moment, but we can't be pretty furious without being pretty first. Skirt.
I mean,
what product have you been loving this week?
Okay, so don't kill me for being this person. But as much as you would think, being a Miss America, that I am like all into the products, I actually know, I just turned 36, that the best thing you can do for your face and for your beauty, besides the Botox we were talking about earlier, is drink a lot of water. And actually, my product is my Brita water bottle.
Oh my God, wait. Okay, so for a second I thought that was a Camelback, and I was going to say, oh my God, I had a Camelback when I was in high school and I like would chew the shit out of the top of it. So is that the one that filters your water? I know, it's gross. Yeah. How I wasn't diagnosed earlier with ADHD is beyond me.
So it actually has a Brita filter inside. So you change out your filter and you can get water from anywhere, literally anywhere. So like, you don't have to go to a filter to a store. You could fill this up in a sink at a gas station. Wouldn't recommend, but you could. So that's my
people who like camping. That's something that they could use for stream water or whatever. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
People inventors are nuts. I did bring a beauty product, and as somebody who literally I don't get ready ever these days, really, which is unfortunate, and I should get better at that. But since I started working from home, I just like I don't know. I just don't really give a shit. You know what I mean?
If I shower, we're doing good.
That's a win. Okay. That's a big win, man.
This might be the one day a week that I'm like, I guess I have to put makeup on.
I know. I was kind of thinking that too. I was like, this would be the 1 or 2 days where I'm forced to actually make myself look like semi-presentable. Okay, so this thing, it's from Makeup Forever. It's the HD Skin Face Essentials palette. And so this is like the light medium one. These are all cream products. They blend like a dream. I have the concealer and the like contour on today. They blend like a dream. You can apply them with your fingers. It's like a 5-minute face situation. Now I will tell you, this is like a $90 palette. I won't even lie to you. But I got
together, yeah.
It's highlighter, blush, contour, bronzer, and concealer. And it's like technically like foundation too. I'm obsessed with it. Yeah. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
I love it. So products aside, we have a lot to get into. We're going to talk about the rabid MAHA movement. But first, we're going to hit you with some headlines. We're thinking like, how do we roll into the stuff that's just making us irate? So, Maggie, what headline is making you pretty furious this week?
So my headline is from theconversation.com. For future reference, I will be sure that my source next time is a legit source. What? I have no fucking idea if this is a legit source. So I really liked the way that they phrased this headline. Okay, so Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says antidepressants are harder to quit than heroin. Is he right? Well, he would know.
He would know.
Here's my thing. When we think about antidepressants, as somebody who has been on them longer than I've not taken them, I started taking an antidepressant at the age of 14, and I'm now 29. So I've been taking this shit for a long, long, long time. And I just want to say, the amount of times that I forget to take my antidepressant, like the limit does not exist, right? Like I am a neurodivergent icon. Okay. I forget to take all of my drugs multiple times. I don't think I've ever...
RFK. He's not forgetting.
Heroin addicts. You know who doesn't forget to take their heroin is a heroin addict.
I didn't mean to steal your punchline.
But like, I just think to myself, like, y'all are so fucking stupid. I literally can't. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. And then the whole labor camps thing. Honestly, it's probably for the best if you send me away with like-minded folks.
I have seen some hilarious.
I'd be down.
People are like Katniss. They're like, oh yeah, you want to send me out to a camp without my medicine?
I saw somebody talking about not taking their antipsychotics, and she was like, "You don't want to see me psychotic," and I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair."
I mean,
So anyway, yeah,
it's hard. It's also hard to know. I err on the side of taking everything that they say seriously, and by they I mean just the conservative movement of Trump supporting insanity. We have to take them seriously because otherwise we'll be looking at our country going down the. We are, but I digress. But then there are times when they say things like this, and I'm like, how serious are we? Like, how much energy
100%.
behind this commentary? So I've got a headline from mine is from Axios, which I think is actually a credible source. Maggie,
That's
do better.
actually like a legit. That's
Do better.
actually a credible source.
Okay.
Theconversation.com.
So mine is Trump moves to defund schools with COVID vaccine mandates. So he's saying that every school in America who currently mandates a COVID vaccine, they're going to get defunded. So I just want to share something quickly with you.
Schools even doing this anymore?
So I talked with experts this morning who track exactly that. They said absolutely no states right now mandate COVID vaccines for children. They couldn't think of any cities that mandated either. New York.
Okay, so he signed an executive order to do a thing about things that don't exist.
Lit. I love executive power so much. It's so sick.
And everyone's like, yeah. So I actually learned about this I mentioned it, but I live in Alabama and I love when AL.com posts news because the comment section is really indicative of our education system. Let's just put it that way. And everyone in the comments was like, yeah, hell yeah, freedom. Don't tell me what to do.
I'm screaming. AL.com really do be popping off. I love me some AL.com.
You would know. For those who don't know, Maggie went to the University of Alabama.
Very, very I used to be like a super proud alumni who was always like, roll tide, y'all, like and now I'm just sort of like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I should share any of that. I don't think I should share the state I'm from. I don't think I should share where I went to school. I don't really think I should share any of that information.
That might be the safest thing because all I get from people on the right, especially on TikTok, well then go back to where you came from. I'm like, bitch, I came from here. This is where I'm from. This is where I was raised.
You're like, I did go back to where I came from.
Yeah, quite literally, I moved away and then I came back.
And then you came back.
Okay, so we have a lot to get into, I know, but let's bring in Erin, shall we?
Gorge. I love it.
So Erin Dittmer is a mom of two, a content creator. She's a business owner. She has a bachelor's of science in public health and an MBA. She previously worked as a wellness coach and a childhood nutrition educator. So before having kids, she spent years teaching nutrition lessons to elementary school students through the SNAP-funded Pick a Better Snack initiative. The program is designed to influence children's food choices by helping them become more familiar with fruits and vegetables and learn fun ways to eat them and increase their overall consumption at school and at home. She is passionate about improving social determinants of health, namely education quality and access, affordable housing and neighborhood safety, economic stability, healthcare, and social policies that uplift our communities. Let's welcome Erin.
Hell yeah, Erin for president. Erin.
We are so excited to have you. We're going to start with your headline. What headline has made you pretty furious?
In light of the disastrous measles outbreak we have been having, according to The Guardian, Louisiana's health department cancels promotion of mass vaccinations. So why not? Why not cancel the promotion of vaccinations when your neighboring state is currently having a measles outbreak? That's what could go wrong, right?
Turn up. We'll be so curious to Erin, just from being in the area of the country that just in the vicinity of where you and I are. I will be so curious to know where Midwestern states start stacking up next to states Louisiana, probably Mississippi, I would assume, Alabama,
Mhm.
potentially. All of
Yeah.
these states, I am so curious to see how this like trickle down effect of how this all is going to impact other states that are predominantly red states or, were unanimously red in this election. I am so curious to see how this is all going to pan out. So thank you. I hate it here.
Someone shared it the other day, and I was like, that's surprising. We're already under the herd immunity percentage that we need to be. You need to be at 95% vaccinations for herd immunity. We're not even at 90%, according to the CDC, for kindergarten vaccination status. That means, which is probably obvious to any of our listeners, but that means that if there is a measles outbreak, you basically don't have a chance of it not spreading. So if one kid gets measles and you have 95% or above vaccination status, it's likely that that's going to be contained. What we're seeing in other states, Texas actually has a higher percentage of vaccinated individuals, or at least kindergartners. And they are having a huge measles outbreak right now, larger than we've seen in, I think it was over 30 years. So this is really concerning for everyone. And I hope it's concerning for the MAHA moms that are, triumphantly advocating for their children's safety via Red Dye 40. More to come with that.
Before we dive in, though, to the MAHA moms, I think it's pretty clear just based on your headline and response to it. We're talking with someone who knows what they're talking about. But first, just tell us a little bit about what inspired you to begin your wellness journey and what made you transition that passion into coaching others in wellness.
I was one of those people that after they graduated college or high school knew exactly what they wanted to major in. So I was one of those avid health magazine, women's health, self magazine readers in high school. And I just found it so fascinating. Now I look back, I'm like, those are so problematic. I see a lot of issues with teenagers reading those kind of health tips now. But at the time, it encouraged me to go into the field of health, nutrition, food science, things like that. So I went to Iowa State, which had a really great kinesiology program that allowed me to not have to focus just on the food we eat, but on overall wellness. So that's what I'm most passionate about, is what we intake, whether it's what we consume in the media, what we consume on our plates, the kind of physical activity we get, our stress levels, how it all creates a wellness in our bodies. So after majoring in kinesiology, I went on to work for a weight management company, which did not follow my values as closely as I thought it would when I started. It turned into a complete sales position, pushing products. So when I pushed back against that, I didn't get a raise. And because I didn't have that money making mindset that you need to be a successful salesperson, you can imagine that my performance at that company did not really excel, and my passion for it, got totally deflated too. So I decided to start my own business, still weight management and still focusing on what foods we eat, but I wanted to start a business that focused on long-term lifestyle change. So stress management, physical activity, eating more nutritious foods in an easy way. Instagram page now that has turned into my whole career is about easy recipes and living a well-balanced, fulfilling life. And with launching my business in 2017, I think it was, it allowed me to do that and just help people in the way that I feel most passionate about. So since those have grown to the point that they're at right now, I transitioned away from one-on-one coaching and going into the schools and teaching nutrition lessons because I wanted to stay at home with my kids and still have a career.
I do just want to interject really quick and say that Erin's account is, and this is also coming from somebody who, Erin and I met because I was also a health coach around the same time. And we met at auditions for a coaching position at a company. I just want to say that even my background being what it is, and Erin's recipes, my God, bar none, some of the best out there. I refer back to her recipes constantly. There is a curry recipe that she makes that I use all the time. There's a lemon orzo chicken one that I use constantly. I'm just saying this account is a life-saving account. I just have to say that, especially as
Aww.
somebody who's neurodivergent as shit.
Honestly makes me feel so good because that's what I want it to be. I want it to be something that you can just refer back to and it makes your life easier, and you don't have to look at nutrition and meal prep as something that is overly complicated or super boring and bland and just like doesn't enhance your life. I think that was something that if you're a health coach and you were in the wellness space in like the 2010s, it was so ingrained in your head, like food is fuel.
I was going to say the grilled chicken, broccoli, brown rice combo that is so ingrained in me from pageant land, Miss America world. I mean, food was not fun. And obviously so much has changed and I've learned so much since then. So being able to follow along with recipes and learn from someone who makes those things fun and approachable is so nice. What, do you consider yourself a crunchy mom? Are you a crunchy mom?
That is a great question. I think a lot of people would assume I'm a crunchy mom because I live on a farm. I make my own sourdough. I do a lot of, homemade food. I am not hesitant, but I'm not quick to give my kids like Tylenol or Advil if they have a slight fever. So I really don't like even the phrasing of scrunchy, but I feel like I align closer to that where it's like, I believe in vaccination for your children and adhering to the schedule in which your doctor recommends, but I also make my own sourdough and I have chickens that are free range on our farm and I'm surrounded by corn and I drink well water. And it's like you can be both things at once. And I think reminding people of that is really important.
Well, one of your main points, as you brought up earlier, wellness is about the holistic approach. And living in 2025, it's not always feasible to make every single thing that your child eats or that you eat. And it's not always feasible to, be in the know about everything at all times, all chemicals, all the things. And especially with, as we're about to get into, everything that is allowed by the Food and Drug Administration. But having that balance, I have two, I'm a bonus mom to two boys. And my husband and I really try very hard to, have very well-rounded meals. But at the end of the day, sometimes a 7-year-old just wants a bag of Doritos. And it's about balance. It's not every day, but sometimes, or they go to a birthday party and they want to enjoy that birthday party just like all the rest of their friends. So I think it's sort of being able to look at your life in a holistic way and go, okay, 85% of the time we're eating well, they're getting enough movement, we're getting enough movement. It's okay for the other 15% of the time for it to be something else, whatever that is, depending on the subject matter.
I mean, I just would be curious, Erin, from your perspective of watching this sort of crunchy mom to MAHA movement develop. I would love to know your perspective as somebody who, you don't identify as a crunchy mom per se, but you do find value in sort of the best of both worlds approach, where there are things that we can do more holistically, like making our own bread or letting our bodies handle viruses as they come, to an extent, and also believing in modern medicine and vaccines. I would just love to know your perspective of watching this sort of trend evolve and how you think we got from crunchy, scrunchy mom to full-blown RFK supporting MAHA movement, anti-vax situation. I would just love to know your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think one of the ways, or one of the reasons that's been talked about a lot is just that need for control. When people feel out of control, oftentimes they turn to what is within their realm of control. So food is a very common one, which is why we have so many eating disorders in our culture too, because when people are feeling out of control, that sometimes is the one thing that you can focus on that feels manageable. And that is very easy to become out of control in an individualistic perspective too, with all of the food anxiety we're having now around ingredients that have been thoroughly studied, FDA approved, have been tested time and time again and shown to not cause any issues within a human being's body. But now, because of the MAHA movement and because of the fear-mongering pseudoscience wellness influencers, now people all of a sudden are kind of grasping on to this ingredient-based food fear. And I think when it comes to MAHA followers, you have to dive into where their devotion comes from. And is it fear or is it a desire to distract? And the desire to distract or detract comes from our leaders and our government not wanting to focus on the things that actually ignite change in a society, healthy change. There's this Venn diagram of people who have no desire for gun reform, and then MAHA, who have all desire to supposedly keep their kids healthy. And it's really encroaching on a circle instead of a Venn diagram. You would think the people who are the most concerned about keeping their kids safe and healthy would be a little more concerned about the number one cause of death for youth ages 1 to 17, which is firearms. That is irrefutable. So I'm thinking the more I dive into this MAHA movement, the more I'm realizing it is a desire to distract more than it is based upon fear and based upon actually wanting to keep our kids healthy.
I think there's something to the concept, though, that often when people who are MAHA, which is, we haven't said these words again yet, make America healthy again. I'm assuming our target audience knows exactly what MAHA is, but I digress.
Yeah.
There's something to be said, though, because those of us who are pushing back against this movement and who are calling out all of the flaws and saying, maybe not like this, I think there is some confusion about the fact that we too, though, do care about those harmful ingredients that are included in our foods. But we also have a greater understanding of the systems that are in place that are keeping healthy foods away from certain demographics and families. Like living in Alabama, the food desert situation is very real. And there are people whose only place to access food is perhaps a gas station or perhaps a McDonald's. And so I just want to make sure that it's stated that we do care about reforming the ways in which we get access to food and the things that are allowed in our foods. But we have to understand that it's a lot of different things that need to be fixed, not just banning a certain ingredient or banning vaccinations.
Yeah, I mean, it's an all-encompassing, there are so many moving parts to all of this. And what I think so much of the MAHA movement and these, very like alt-right kind of grifters, what they don't understand is that a lot of them say things to the effect of, well, if we could just be a country like fill in the blank, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, etc. Yeah, some type of European country. I think to myself, if you want to be a socialist, just say that. Just say that. Yes. Like, here's my thing. Socialism, as a concept, and we won't get too far into this, but it's like, if you want the things you say you want, you have to understand this from a broader lens of the reason that these countries are so healthy and have longevity and great quality of life, and they don't rely as much on antidepressants and SSRIs and things of that nature, and they have less postpartum depression, and they have healthier kids, is because of the social structures that uphold that society. So it's the universal healthcare. Yeah, it is the infrastructure that upholds all of that and makes that possible. So it is infuriating to listen to these MAHA moms who are like, well, red dye 40 is banned in Denmark. We should just be more like Denmark. And I'm like,
yeah, let's be more like Denmark.
Let's talk about that. Like, yeah.
I'm in Denmark in August. I will take notes and I will report back to the MAHA community what things we should do more.
Exactly.
I too wish it were safe enough to leave my kids outside in a stroller for hours while I enjoyed a lovely dinner with my friends without fear of anything that happens here in the United States.
Did you see the baby boxes that Scotland's now giving every single new parent? No. They are like the size of a child's bed. Like, they are huge. They're filled with pacifiers, little onesies, things to help you like bathe your child, like medicine, all these essential things for your child. Every single person in Scotland gets one of these. It's like, yeah, imagine the lack of stress, and imagine how healthy we could all be if we had paid parental leave, if we had that kind of assistance and nurses coming to our house for well checks instead of having overrun like pediatric offices, because, in reality, they don't get paid enough. And I know so many people think that these doctors are just in it for the money. It's like, honey, if these people were that maniacal, do you think they would go through that much schooling, pay that much money to get that schooling, and then go into an industry that isn't even close to the highest paid industry at this point, just to mislead people and just to make money? That's not happening.
How do you think, or do you have a theory about how conservatives sort of co-opted this movement and brought, let's face it, white suburban moms into the fold?
I think, well, you know what this reminds me of, or that question, they covered it on Caro's podcast, which I know you guys are familiar with those too. And when I heard this, it was like a light bulb went off in my mind. They're co-opting the language because it is still a nuanced topic that has been left unsolved. Like, it has not, it is very difficult in our society to solve all of these like feminist, reproductive, social determinants of health issues for a variety of reasons. Government corruption is absolutely one of those reasons. Corporation, our insanely capitalistic structure of business, is one of those reasons. But I think because these issues have been left unattended or unsolved, maybe not necessarily even unattended, because I do think there's people trying to solve these problems.
Don't forget, everyone lost their minds about Michelle Obama trying to make school lunches healthier. Like, there have been nationwide efforts to bring attention to childhood nutrition in a way that was fun and meaningful. And people
I worked on those campaigns. Yes, that's what's so crazy. I worked under the Let's Move campaign. We saw the benefit of Michelle Obama's plans. They were acting like nothing is being done in these schools to make these children healthier. It's like, I was doing it. A lot of us were doing it, but there's not money to pay educators to go into these schools. We were only allowed to go into the SNAP funded, the lowest income schools. And I would love to go into all of the schools in our community and be able to do this. But you think the people that don't even think third graders should get free school lunch are going to sign bills to give nutrition educators like me money to go into the schools to teach them about eating fruits and vegetables? Like, no way. You call Michelle Obama a communist. You're definitely not going to allow for healthy nutrition education in schools, which would align with the MAHA's supposed goals.
Right. Yeah. There's so much, what's the word I'm looking for? There's so much like contradictions within the MAHA movement. Yeah. So I guess one thing that I'm curious about from your perspective is this confusion, this sort of like constant contradictions that we see within the MAHA movement. Let's kind of take a step to the MAHA influencers. We know who they are, and we don't need to like out them by name unless we want to. How do you think there's so much money in keeping people confused and keeping these constant contradictions going? As somebody who is,
some would say, yeah,
exactly. As somebody who is immersed heavily, like within basically, like, very much an overlapping space where you are also trying to educate people about nutrition, very much accurately and in a way that is like, authentic and real. How do you feel? How does that sit with you that there are people trying to like come into your space where you have an actual degree, you have actual credentialing in this, and there are people who are just like fear mongering because it's how they're going to continue to make money?
Well, one, obviously it's disappointing, and it's scary to see the type of impact they are making on our communities. But it, again, is a more nuanced topic because it even has to do with the algorithms. So I know if I post a video talking about how to get your kids to eat more vegetables, it's going to get a fraction of the views and make a fraction of the money that I could be making if I went to Costco with my husband and said, hey, record me calling this, and this poison. Like, make sure you capture me pointing to this food box and being like, toxic, poison. I could make a grand or two on one video if I was willing to sell out for those purposes. But of course, because my morals and ethics align with what truly impacts people's health and what is going to, nourish their bodies instead of just causing them more food anxiety, I'm not going to do that. And it is disappointing because the algorithm is going to reward the shares. They're going to reward the comments. And probably one of my most interacted with videos was incendiary in the fact that food dye was used to dye our Easter eggs. And the people at my throat in the comments for letting my kid dye eggs with food dye, and then I called it edible because it was made with Cool Whip. I was a horrible mom because of that. People were so excited about Red Dye 3, I think it was, being banned, which had only been proven to have negative health outcomes when given to like 40 times the body weight in rats. So when you really dive into where the concerns lie, it's just so misplaced. The fear is so misplaced that I really admire the progress that Dr. Jessica Nurick, unbiased SciPod, hydroxide food scientist, so many of these creators are doing such a good job getting engagement by spreading positive information and truthful information. I can get defeated in a way of just like worrying about my community and worrying about all of our communities. It gives me hope seeing these creators that are spreading truth and are actually talking about the topics that they're credentialed in, gaining momentum. And I see people that have never shared any sort of political content on their stories sharing posts from Dr. Jessica Nurick and from all these creators that are actually breaking through those echo chambers. And it's really relieving to see.
It is relieving. I, not to consider them influencers, but I do have acquaintances and friends around the country who typically don't share anything to do with politics or anything political, but the MAHA movement and RFK Jr. have inspired them to be a part of sharing information that is correct and helpful versus just staying silent. Because I think we, especially after the election and we see the results and where women place their votes, and specifically white women, we're realizing more and more. Some of us have been on this train for a long time. I think the three of us here have been on this train for a long time, but there are a lot of women who are waking up and realizing if they don't start having these conversations in their circles of influence, in the living rooms that they find themselves in, at the dinners that they find themselves in, that they are contributing and complicit to the space that we're in from a government perspective and a societal perspective. So I say this carefully, I am somewhat grateful to the MAHA movement because I do think it is opening the eyes of women who are realizing, oh, wait, we've got to have these conversations. I've got to be a part of these conversations because this is contributing negatively to, unfortunately, their own health, their own communities. Now, I wish it didn't take something impacting you in order for you to step in and do something about it, but I digress.
Yeah, that's a great kind of segue into this. So Erin and I were on the phone the other night and we were talking about kind of these, I'll call them like outer fringe friends, right? There's the people who are on like the outer part of your social circle who you don't actually know where they stand politically. They never, Mallory, to your point about this, they don't typically post anything about politics. They, maybe the MAHA movement was their first like real introduction into posting about politics or talking about it generally speaking because it affected them. Sad. But I'm curious, Erin, from your perspective of, when we're thinking about the MAHA movement, we're thinking about crunchy moms, and at the end of the day, this is, I guess, sort of how I like try to drive empathy towards this group of people. is like these are moms who want to take care of their children. I can empathize with that. I totally get that. That must be, I'm not yet a mom, that must be very terrifying to have all of this conflicting information all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So for these outer fringe people, these people who aren't always consuming news and consuming information, what's the best way that we can mobilize and get them involved into this conversation about how our health and the health of our children, namely, is impacted by who we vote for, and why these conversations about politics directly actually tie into our health as Americans?
Ask yourself, is this an individualistic problem or is this a societal problem? I think a lot of times what MAHA has been doing is they've been focusing on these individualistic problems that we still have control over. So I can easily go weeks, months without giving my child red dye 40. It's really not that hard. You can easily read an ingredient label, see, that doesn't have red dye 40. We don't necessarily need the corporations not putting it in our food. That is going to make it easier for less educated groups to make healthier decisions. But overall, let's focus on those societal problems, and each person's passion will lead them to a different societal problem. So whether that's food insecurity or like calling your representatives. I feel like we've gotten like assaulted by suggestions to call our representatives lately because so much
the Five Calls app is like blowing up.
But it's true. It works. It works. And it's so necessary to actually feel that you have a say in how your government is working for you. So if you're passionate about a certain thing, you can find your representative's numbers. You can easily make a phone call. You can volunteer, or even just spreading the information via your Instagram stories. Like, you might be the one person in someone's life that can break through that echo chamber. You might be the only one sharing information that is coming from a content creator with actual credentials that align with what they're speaking on. So just know that you have a voice. You have every ability to get involved, to follow your passions and help make society better. It doesn't necessarily have to be just spreading fear-mongering pseudoscience online. Like, I'm not trying to call anyone out, but if all you're doing is
please do. Just call them. Just do it.
If all you're doing is seeing an incendiary post and like sharing that to your stories, that what you're doing is you are just creating more food anxiety within your circle of friends. You are not actually moving the needle in general.
So to recap, your takeaways are to find something that you can do individually, something that you're passionate about, potentially in your own backyard, in your community. The other thing you can do is call your representative, which I think we'll probably say in every episode of this show, because
literally. We might just see if the 5 Calls app can sponsor the show eventually. Like,
every episode. And then the third thing you can do is actually be a steward of sharing accurate and good information, because you never know, you might be the person. All right, Erin, we're really so grateful for your expertise on this topic. Have a quick game we want to play with you to get your thoughts.
Okay, so this is our little Fury or Fun segment. It is basically a series of things. Do they make you furious? Do you think they're fun? Et cetera, et cetera.
I'm so excited.
The first thing on this list, as I actually can't believe I wrote this down, Nancy Mace.
Honestly, can I phone a friend and bring in Suzanne Lambert right now? Do you guys know who that is?
Rip her to filth.
If you are not following Suzanne Lambert right now, who has done excellent coverage on Nancy Mace, please do so. Please do so, because
her video about Nancy in the bathroom. By the way, we reached out. So Suzanne, if you ever hear this, we love you. We'd love to have you on the show.
We love you. We want you on the show.
How dare you focus on one transgender person in your workplace that has done nothing wrong, has been accused of no sexual assault whatsoever, and ignore the dozens, which according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, it'd be a majority of the Republican Party's sexual assault allegations that are right in front of your face, that are happening reoccurringly.
Our president, our Secretary of Defense, RFK Jr., I mean, the list is very long.
It's basically like if you weren't accused of sexual assault, you cannot be on that cabinet. Like you will not get a leadership role. Qualifiers, yeah, sexual
Their
assailant.
pre-qualification is they
bonus
must be
points.
a
Bonus points if you're white. More bonus points if you worked for Fox News.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is
And bonus points for each wife you've had. Each wife also, yeah.
Or child.
And not to mention a bevy of children to go along with it. Okay, next up is collagen peptides.
Ooh, you know, I love my collagen. I drink my collagen every morning. And here's the thing. I am not drinking my collagen because I think it is going to make my hair and nails grow long and luxurious and whatever. I'm drinking my collagen because it's such an easy way to get protein first thing in the morning when I am like running back and forth getting my children fed. It doesn't have every single essential amino acid in it. So you do want to pair your collagen with another protein source. So that is a complete protein. So my go-to morning coffee is going to be my Premier Protein or some other ready-to-drink protein shake. In my little Breville milk frother, I have my espresso, my Americano, and then I have my collagen peptides.
Okay, that sounds amazing, actually. I've never once had a collagen peptide, but now I may be convinced that this is
I put them in my coffee every day. I will say I don't do it for hair, or same as Erin, I don't do it for any other purpose other than first thing in the morning, all I want is coffee, and I feel, I don't know, guilty or bad if it doesn't have some kind of, I don't know, health factor to it, mostly because the creamer I use is probably 300 grams of fat in it. Like, it's just awful for you. So
people were putting butter, like sticks of butter in their coffee. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then everybody was doing, what was the bulletproof coffee?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just,
I never had.
Oh my God. And
people once thought, that sounds like a good idea. Never, not one time.
People putting butter in there. I'm like, ew, y'all are fucking weird.
Make America healthy again by putting a whole fucking stick of butter in your coffee.
Yeah.
It's raw milk now too. People are putting raw milk. Oh my God.
With avian flu outbreak, the first death was recorded, I think, in Louisiana like today. From avian flu. People are still drinking raw milk.
Here's my thing. Darwinism is a beautiful thing. I literally am just going to let Darwinism play out, honestly. Like, I think that's our best bet at this point.
Here's what's alarming, though. When the bacteria has a host, it can actually be spread person to person through one person drinking raw milk. The person can get sick next to them, not because they drank the raw milk, but because the bacteria mutated and spread through just like mucus or spit or whatever. So I used to be that way too. I used to be like, hey, Darwinism, like survival of the fittest, whatever. But it is so far beyond like an individualistic problem now. Like now it is a societal problem. And yeah, it's scary. One day are educated doctors drinking raw milk. I know that. You're not going to see immunologists, virologists drinking raw milk.
I know that, and I'm glad I do know that now. And I do think this might be a clip that makes it to the internet because what?
100%. I also did see, and this is just, I only follow this account because of, I don't know, maybe our exit from the World Health Organization. There's an account on Threads that's like SARS, you know, the big COVID. I don't know if we'll get like censored for saying COVID on this podcast, but it's like SARS something, whatever. And they give a ton of, you know, public health information about different
oh yes, I know what you're talking about.
That spread. And I read something that, and I don't know if this is real. I read it and I was, am I following the wrong account? Like do I need to hit an unfollow here? And it said that bird flu is actually able to be spread now through wind up to a 5-mile radius.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, I was a better person before I knew that information. I was a more well-rounded, mentally stable person.
Yeah, mentally, yeah.
Before that information entered my sphere. So anyway,
And now
have
we
a
have
great day.
a secretary who isn't going to focus on any sort of like short-term acute illness.
Okay, next up on our list is, how do you feel about the paleo diet?
What's funny is my friend and I did a competition in college. So we were like, we're gonna do the paleo diet. Let's see who can get a six-pack first. First of all, women don't try to get a six-pack. Like, that's just don't do it. Like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. I think the body fat percentage for most women that like how low it has to be to actually visually see a six-pack on a woman is like dangerously low. So first of all, no
we
brainer.
know.
Mallory and I are like, at Miss America and at Miss Iowa.
Oh yeah,
we were in that.
You're like that percentage ruined me for a while. So why are we trying to eat like cavemen that had like no other resources or information at their fingertips? Like, we make fun of cavemen for everything else, but we're just going to like eat like rummage for berries. Okay, like go for it. Whatever. Like, you can do that. But if you are trying to tell someone to remain mentally stable and not eat anything that cavemen eat, you are like asking for disaster.
Yeah,
and probably
so
an eating disorder, honestly.
That part. Last
that
one.
part.
We know that you're a connoisseur of decor, so we want to know how you feel about Joanna Gaines / the modern farmhouse decor trend.
As someone who lives on a farm.
As someone who lives on a farm. I prefer the French farmhouse style. If you really want to get into it, I love a good like French infused interior. I put my foot in my mouth before because someone was like complimenting our house and the design, and it was right around the time that Joanna Gaines was becoming really popular, and a lot of people were doing shiplap, and I said something against shiplap and how I was like, well, yeah, I'm definitely, I feel like everyone just likes shiplap now, and I was like, no shiplap in our house. And naturally that person was like, I just put shiplap in blah, 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 of course. And I was like, oh, this is why I don't share my opinion on anything. Like,
we just bought a house, and we bought it mid-spec build, so we were able to go in and customize everything that you could choose, essentially. And while we were walking around with the woman who was helping us in the process, and they initially had shiplap above the fireplace, and I was like, oh my God, don't do that. And she was like, why, you don't like it? So I was like, I'm sorry.
She's like, my entire house is shiplap.
Live, laugh, love, Erin.
Give it up to God.
Live, laugh, never vaxxed. I thought that was going to be a little more of an alliteration then, but I couldn't think of one.
That's great.
Live, laugh, never vax.
Maybe that's our episode title. God. That's incredible.
I do think we might attract the wrong audience if that's the title, but
correct. Yeah. You're right.
Okay. Yeah, that's a bone to pick that I have with Instagram right now, actually, is I swear every time I post something about sourdough, they're like, you like sourdough? Okay, here are all these content creators that also like sourdough and don't like human rights. I bet you'll like them. And I say, not interested.
I will just tell you that I love that you mentioned that, because I kind of circling back to that echo chamber piece of this conversation. I unfollowed like between 5 and 10 of these major, homemaking accounts, whatever. And they all were sourdough and raising eggs and raw milk and all the things. I unfollow all of them. And my entire feed just made a complete 180. It was like I never saw anything again about sourdough or about, it was like all after that I started seeing finally the science accounts that I had followed for information. They were finally showing up in my feed again because they had magically disappeared from my actual feed.
Mm-hmm.
On my explore page, it was, back to the stuff I had enjoyed before, some style accounts and some thrifting accounts, and and all the political accounts that I like. And I just was like, how crazy that I unfollowed a very specific, like, niche account. And there were, again, like I said, maybe max 15 of them that I unfollowed. And it completely just like destroyed my algorithm and started it all over again. It was insane. It was wild.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because Erin, you brought up Katie and Carol earlier in Diabolical Lies, but their episode, The Tale of Two Algorithms, where they very specifically point out we end up seeing certain content or not seeing certain content. It is fascinating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the feeder accounts, the second you follow one, all of a sudden, you'll start seeing all the other accounts that share that wisdom. One thing I've been really impressed by and really excited to see on my algorithm is there's one creator called Brie Motherhood. They'll say like this and human rights, this and protecting trans kids, this and whatever, and it'll be visual clips of a farmstead, chickens, making sourdough. And I've been seeing more and more accounts do that. And I've been telling myself, I need to spend the time to create a video like that, because I mean, when you're a creator, you want people that share your beliefs to follow you. I mean, unless I can potentially break through an echo chamber, I don't necessarily want people who don't believe in, everyone is equal or everyone should have human rights.
Yeah, I saw that same video too. And I really enjoyed that. I love it.
This episode is brought to you by Basic. Located in the heart of downtown Birmingham, Alabama, Basic is a 100% women-owned and run, slow fashion and ethical lifestyle store. All apparel, art, and decor at Basic is responsibly made by individuals paid living wages within dignified working spaces. In addition, they donate a portion of every sale to human rights efforts. Visit Basic in person, downtown Birmingham, Alabama, or at www.abasicshop.com. Use code PrettyFurious for 15% off your first purchase. So Erin, at the beginning of the show, we talked about products that we are loving this week. Did you bring a product?
Yes. It's not even this week. This is the MAHA Perfect Cover BB Cream. It has SPF 42. It feels like a tinted moisturizer, but my hack for this, which I've been loving since it is SPF, is I do a combination of colors. So I just do a light and like a darker. I mix these according to whether I have a spray tan on and when I have seen the sun lately. And then another thing I have this Hypnos palette from Lancome, because I figured out, this is mostly for like moms who don't have a lot of time to be doing their makeup. I found out I can do like a full face just with this palette. If you only need like a 5-minute face, or you need to put these in your car, like that's what I love.
Gorgeous. I love it. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today, for being here. Before we wrap up really quick, why don't you tell everybody your handles, where they can follow you, website, all the things.
Yeah, so Instagram is All Inspired Wellness, TikTok for however much longer it lasts, Erin_Dittmer. And then my website is just erindittmer.com.
Erin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I could yap with you guys for hours.